be standing? Or do you want to be standing?
He's right here. Good.
Okay.
Good. How we doing, Cinders?
We're good.
Are we on?
We're on. I'm letting this thing record. So great.
Well, I think we can pull it now, don't you think?
Well, we probably don't need to introduce where we're at. Well, look who's here and look where we're at.
Yeah. That was my very first movie that I ever made. It was an introduction to life because I was just 7 years old. That's when you start putting two and two together. I walked into that and I said, wow, I want to be in the movies. That's the way to do it. I started out tap dancing is what I did.
Tap dancing, huh?
In Denver, Colorado, and everybody always said, oh, he's so cute, you know, you ought to take him out and get him in the movies.
Yeah.
And my mother had arthritis so bad that she was all but crippled when we did there. So we came out here and I on a train. We had in mind, we were dead poor. We couldn't afford to come out to try to get me in the movies. But our arthritis was gone, and that's how we ended up in California.
Amazing.
So, you know, as the dominoes fall over, one changes the path from here to there.
It does.
But, oh, that was great.
Obviously, we're at the home of TV Tommy Ivo, and this is something we've wanted to do for a long time. And finally, all the pieces came together. And I mean, this could be a mini-series, much less an hour show. And there's, you know, really two elements of it. It's Tommy's early career as an actor and performer and morphed into a big-time drag racer. I mean, everybody's familiar with TV Tommy, even if they're not a drag race fan. So thanks for letting us come out and do this.
I appreciate it.
Do a long time. And I mean, we're just in awe of your place here. You've been here how long in this piece of property?
I bought this one here in 1948.
48, okay.
When I was 12 years old with my movie money.
Uh-huh.
And it cost $10,000. How'd you like to buy a piece of property in Burbank for $10,000?
You've probably done pretty well on it, I imagine.
It did grow up a little in value, yes it did.
Well, it's a beautiful place, and this is actually the second home on this piece of property, right?
Yeah, what I did was I put a little add-on here, about almost 3,000 feet.
Okay.
And what the idea, the whole thing was, I've got my collections from all over the world in here. And the idea of this deal here was, I had the house still up front, and my mother was still up there.
Okay.
And I figured when she didn't need it anymore, I'd tear it off the front.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then as time went along, she kept going and going, and finally had to go to a nursing home. A nice one, but it wasn't home.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, you know, I'm going to leave that little thing up there, and if I ever get old, here I am about to turn 87.
Well, it's been quite an 87 years.
Yeah. So I kept it up there so I could have someone up there to watch after me. Is how the thing works.
It's all very practical and common sense, but to be in the same piece of property through the whole deal.
Yeah.
I mean, the acting career,
watching
the drag
her all
racing
grow
thing,
up and everything.
And you actually worked out of the garage at the front house.
I did, the one you walked by.
Yeah.
That built one of the most famous cars in the world, that four-engine car.
That four-engine car, right there, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, Cindy's walking around just picking up some of the artifacts, and this is obviously the great room here.
It is. It's my playpen. You know?
Yeah.
I had a home in Cleveland, a summer home. We had 9 rooms in it. We never used it, so I use here. That whatchamacallit, the merry-go-round horse you just went by.
Yeah.
I used to ride that in Denver, Colorado.
Really, the merry-go-round? Did you get that?
I did.
Yeah.
So you rode that very horse.
Yeah, and then I came through racing, and they were tearing down the merry-go-round. So I bought, that was Trigger, Roy Rogers' horse.
Huh.
And then the second movie I ever made was with Roy Rogers. Talk about being in doggy heaven. But I did that a lot. We bought these stained glass windows when we were going down the road traveling, when they were tearing down those mansions and everything. So it, you know, and I had it in mind of doing it all here at the house.
Oh, you've done a wonderful job. This place is just, I mean, it's you. I mean, this is your life right here in this house.
Everything means something to me. What was I going to say here? Oh, I did all the design work on it.
You did it all yourself,
We
huh?
cantilevered the ceiling up there and everything, and then did the general contracting, and even swung a hammer quite a bit. I took and built these stairs that are in here. In the bedroom, I put an oak ceiling in and everything. But I'm so
What year
allergic.
was this house built?
This was built in 82.
82.
81.
81, so
Yeah,
a little
to be
over 40
exact.
years ago.
Yeah.
And
oh,
this
yeah.
poster has to do with the
Yeah.
construction
Yeah,
of this. Is that
tell
right?
us a little bit about
Take
that.
one
big-
more. We don't want to get too hung up
Okay.
here, but take a quick, just swing over here to the right. On the stuff from the right picture from Egypt, I went there for my 40th birthday. The Chinese piece next to it, I went for my 50th birthday. And the kimono up there, I got married. I waited until I was 36 to get married. So I'd saved a little money, and we took a honeymoon trip for a month and a half, and went around the world.
Around the world.
And that's where we bought
That
that.
is beautiful.
We went back around the world once again with those puppets when I was 60, because I outlived my dad. I was so happy.
Oh,
And the picture over there, that picture paid off the house.
really?
It bought me my first Buick.
Oh,
And
really?
put a little jingle in the bank that I had to go drag racing.
So how old would you have been there?
I was 15.
15.
And
So
I
we're,
played 10.
I was going to say, well, that's, we'll get into the drag
Yeah,
racing
yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah,
because
of
obviously
course.
you weren't on the football team in high school or on the
Yeah,
basketball team.
yeah, that's a big fat chance
But
of
on the
that.
other hand, you took on the big guys when we get to the drag racing part.
Well, that was
big
the
time.
whole deal,
Yeah.
you know, because I was 115 pounds. I couldn't even make water boy, let alone quarterback, you know. But when I got these cars, it was like RoboCop outfits that I'd slip on, and I'd go rip the asphalt off the ground, and beat the varsity guys. So
No,
I was
and
good
that
at
you
that.
did. Tell us a little bit about the piano here while we're still in this room.
Okay. What happened was Paul Lynn, the guy that was a center guy on the Hollywood Squares, he was quite a character. And he had a piano player, he had butlers and maids, all made out of paper mache all over his house.
Huh.
Tom McCurry, who worked at Beacons, they put it into storage there, and when he passed away, McCurry got a hold of the thing, and then all I had to do was cross his palm with silver, and I got it for my place too.
Well, when we walked in, it got my attention. I
It
looked
does. It startles people, doesn't it? Yeah, oh yeah, Phelps, my doorman over here.
Oh, here. Did
yeah,
did
he
you see
come
the doorman
from,
sitting
come
there?
from Nairobi.
I did.
From Nairobi.
Yeah,
He's
and,
amazing.
what they did, those capes that's on him, or the shawl, whatever you want to call it, they had those on the guys that were watching after their sheep out in the Ngorongoro crater, and they'd sell them when they got too beat up, and they'd put them on here. It's you know, like I say, it's nice to come in the house because it's like an old pair of shoes or
Oh, God.
warm gloves when you put the thing on. Back over here. But what I think perhaps we might sort of be heading for, if you'd like to, is the trophy room.
The trophy room. Yeah, we need to do that. Yeah, I mean,
You
our
know-
show's about old-time drag racing, but there's no way we could overlook this part of your career
Oh,
because
yeah. Well, if
I mean,
you
it's
look
just
up
amazing.
there in the balcony,
Yeah, I mean,
see that camera up there? I used to sit under that when they would shoot Western movies. I was a good kid, so they all treated me pretty good.
You did quite a few westerns, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, that was terrible.
Who's that?
When I was in school, everybody had flat tops and crew cuts.
Okay.
And I'm walking around with hair down to my shoulders for the Western movies, looking like a potted plant. So they all got on me pretty hard from time to time.
How many full-length movies do you think you made?
I made just about 100.
About 100 of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
But see, I made movies before they even had television.
Of course, yeah, they were talking.
But they were talkies.
Yeah. But there were a lot of black and whites in there too, weren't
They
there?
were.
Yeah.
That's where that one came from.
I saw one the other night.
Started off
I Remember Mama.
Yeah.
It showed up on Turner Classics, and
Oh, that was a great one.
It was a
They
great
show
movie.
it periodically.
yeah. Well, you know, we were in some big name stars at that time too.
Oh,
Did you
yeah,
get to
well,
know many of them very well personally?
I did. I've
Yeah.
got a script in the other room that's signed by Rudy Valley and, you know, all the stars of the thing. And the director, George Stevens, he was a Cecil B. DeMille kind
Right,
of
George
director.
Stevens, right.
Big guy.
Right.
He did Giant right after he did that. And in the scene, they were operating on my legs, so he tied 2 strings onto my toes. And he'd say, when I pull the right one, sort of look to one side and go, it hurts. And then when I pull the left one, sit up and look at your leg and go, like it really hurt. So one of the scenes, he silently cut it, so I didn't hear him say cut. And he started pulling the strings, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left.
Right.
He wouldn't give up, and I wouldn't give up. And I was going, ooh, ah, and I had the whole set laying on the floor laughing over the deal.
Well, that was a big part of the movie, the plot of the old uncle that, was such a nice guy and everything. But it's a great movie. I remember Mama, Turner Classic shows it every now and then.
They do.
There's a lot of other ones that are out there.
There's one they show that's Plymouth Adventure.
Okay.
About crossing over on the Mayflower. And the queen that just passed away, came there for brunch. And they had one of the stages all set up. And so we got to go in and meet the queen.
Really?
Now, I sat by the kitchen door when we sat down, but I still got to meet the queen.
Still got to meet the queen.
Not only that, but here's another one. I worked with Ronald Reagan in a movie.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And when he was president, that wasn't known too much, but you call in there and tell him you were in a movie with him with a good part, and he let you come into a state dinner.
Oh, is that right?
So I got to go to the White House for that.
That
Back to the door, back by the table by the kitchen door again, but I didn't fist bump him when we met him.
Yeah, over at Maravis's the other night, his son was there, Michael Reagan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's,
But anyway.
Who was Spencer Tracy was in that one movie, wasn't he? How was he to work with?
He was the biggest movie star
Sure,
in the world
he was
at
a
the
giant
time.
star then.
The only problem is I died
Okay.
TB, scurvy, and pneumonia
Oh, okay.
just before we got to land when they were burying my body at sea.
Oh, Lord,
Said,
lost you again.
But it's on every once in a while,
No.
what
That's
can
great.
I tell you?
Well, then television, you had a lot of TV. One series, I believe, was it Margie, I believe it was?
Yeah,
Was it a series?
I always played, when I was a kid, a cripple or an orphan. And then as I grew up, like in the Margie show, I played Haywood Botts.
Haywood Botts,
Now
good
that's
name.
self-explanatory. You can't walk and chew gum at the same time. That must have been my character or something. But then I'd go out and drive my 200-mile-an-hour race car on the weekend.
Right.
So talk about a Clark Kent Superman deal. That one worked out pretty
I
good.
get that, right. And you did a lot of the series. I think you showed up on
I
Leave It to
had a
Beaver
running
and-
part as the Duke on the Leave It to Beaver show. And then I was Herbie, another 10-thumbed bumbling boyfriend that lived next door to the Donna Reed show.
Okay.
But those were so much fun. In fact, Perdone came down with me one day when we were shooting the Donna Reed show.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. That would have been in the early 60s about that time, wouldn't it?
it would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember at the San Gabriel days when we first kind of crossed paths out there at that time. I think that's when you were doing that show.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, that was the whole thing with the 4-engine car.
Yeah.
See, I was the first one. Well, why don't we get into the
Should we walk
the
into the
racing
racing
Let's
room?
walk into the racing
Let's walk in
room,
here
'cause
without
that's what I
tripping
want.
over the cords or hitting my head on the staircase. Cinder, did you get a
Here-
picture of this?
I'm working my way right
Oh,
here.
yeah,
There we
no.
go.
That's a big part.
This
is
one
a-
right up here really means something to me.
Yeah.
Because that was the first Hall of Fame down
Right.
at Garlitz's. And it was the first one.
It was.
And I'm the last of the Mohegans.
No,
that's
that's
still
true. I
running.
looked that up today.
So
It was-
don't sell us Munchkin short.
No.
We got some.
No, there were 20 inductees in that first class, and you were one of them,
Yeah.
along with Mickey Thompson and Jack Hart and some really big names, Art Christman, and
Yeah,
you were
no. And of course, these are up from the reunion.
reunion here, and here's probably the 3 most famous Ivo cars right here.
Well, they are,
yeah,
In
and
fact, this twin motor car here, I think you've told me that was the favorite of my cars.
I
that
think
you
so.
had. And it was mine as well,
Well-
because there was a lot of a lot of engineering kind of went into the thing.
Yeah.
We took and we ran one motor backward and one motor forward. I copied Howard's
Twin Bear, you called it?
Bear, yeah. But this one was a little daintier. It didn't have a wood plywood.
No, it was a
front on the
little
thing.
nicer than Howard's
And then
stuff.
he had the motors turned in different
Right.
ways. So
Yeah,
well,
that was
there's
a-
more pictures in the other room.
That was a Kent Fuller car also, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah,
Fuller.
and as was well, you don't have the first Buick here, which had the similar sled roll cage, you know.
It did.
But we'll talk about the
Yeah, okay.
drag racing thing. But those are, like everything, Ivo's stuff was always premier. I mean, I think you were noted for that. You didn't have any junk. I mean, it's.
Well, I think
you
it
built
had
your career
to
on
do
that.
a bit with the movie business too,
Yeah.
because I was aware that we had fans in the stands,
Yeah,
and
but-
trying to make it look as nice as you could.
Well, I did, but I think your personality showed through there too. I don't think you wanted anything that wasn't just
No,
right.
no.
So yeah, let's go in here, send her
Okay.
into the Ivo Museum.
On the way in here.
Yeah, here we
just
go.
Step over here for just 1 second.
Okay,
Look at
yeah,
this
send her
in
go
here.
follow Tom in there and.
See that's my proudest thing there. It's Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah,
You know, they're very limited on the people.
Oh,
that
you are.
get
You-
to go
you-
in there.
you were in the
And I-
class of 2005. I looked that up today.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful.
And there's only
few
one
months
drag
ago.
racer each year that goes into that.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, it isn't like they take 20.
No, it's
Carlos
that is
And
that's the cream of the
around
crop.
we go here and into the room. And this is my bragging room, of course. Everybody has to have one of them, don't they?
This is an
But
iconic image right here, isn't it, Tommy?
Yeah, oh well,
Oh, this-
that was, here, let me get this out of the way for you. That was the e-ticket ride of my life. It had an engine explosion. And by the way, I was racing Tarzan, my old pit guy.
Was that
so I
right?
had
You-
it hopped up pretty good when we went to rent. And the fire was so ferocious that it zeroed down the house, the push down on the wing.
Huh.
And as I lifted, the thing rolled over, and it was amazing. I didn't get a scratch out of the deal, and if I could only make one run on drag racing, that would have been the one that I made.
You'd do it again, huh?
It cost me an engine when it blew up. It cost the car when it rolled over. So
Well, it
was
could have got me
expensive.
because I was on this side of the guardrail in the emergency truck right there.
Oh, right. See this right here? The thing's already been over once, and it's got all the body panels in the way. And I was sitting right there as it was spinning around backwards, went upside down and back forward. It went upside down and backwards at a couple of 100 miles an hour. And the only thing that made me mad was it scared me so bad. I closed my eyes and missed the whole show.
You missed it.
But it worked, you
Did it
know.
work?
And ostriches aren't all stupid. If you don't have to see it happen, it doesn't hurt.
Well, Al Teague was describing a crash he had, and he says things just slowed down. Did you find that sensation of things
It
slowed
did.
down?
It
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
It probably only took about 3-4 seconds for
Yeah.
it to stop. It felt like 3-4 minutes.
Yeah.
I opened my eyes one time, and the track was up here, and the tower was upside down. And I says,
dear.
no, I don't want to see
This is not good.
But what's an interesting thing on it, I read a deal where a guy fell out of a big building one time. He landed on a car, didn't do him any good, but he lived through the thing. And he said when he started to fall, he figured, well, that's it. And it almost became pleasant. It's the same phenomenon with me. Once I decided I wasn't going to get hurt, that was it. I was going way too fast to have something like that walk away from it, you know, which I did.
Interesting.
After it got pleasant, well, then it was okay,
Huh.
especially when it backed in the guardrail and unloaded the motor and everything. And I had just got married, and my ex-wife was in the push truck.
Oh.
And from the starting line, all you saw was a big cloud of smoke and fire,
Oh, yeah.
and all these pieces flying about because it tore it completely
Oh,
apart.
That's a big time
They
crash
said
right there.
When they were in the return road going up to pick me up, my ex-wife was sitting in the back seat, counting the insurance.
Okay.
That makes a good
Well,
story.
It does make a good story. Well, that was a serious crash, and for you to want to redo that again, you got to be nuts.
Well, yeah. No, maybe not again.
Not again.
It was
Okay.
worth the price of admission the first time.
So, Cinder, you're getting a lot of this stuff.
Oh, there's so much here to look at. So go for it,
Here
Tommy. Tell
we
us.
were there for my 80th birthday.
Yeah, boy, I do remember that.
Oh boy, do we ever? And we got all these cars and bought them in for the thing. So that was just spectacular. Here's the poster that we had for the thing, and they've look right down here at this one here. It was another podcast that I did. But that's represents my work.
There's a lot in there, too.
Of cars.
A lot of cars. It was almost a car a year.
It was.
Yeah.
It was either that or a redone one.
Right.
They had one they wanted to do again. Let down here. You just went past Indy. The first year they ran Indy in 1961. And as you can, I think it was 61, was it not?
I think it was, yeah.
And see the flag starter? We
Yeah.
still had a flag starter
Yeah.
in those days.
Well, that was the year you brought the car out. I remember when you brought it out to San Gabriel, may have been the first place you ran it. If it wasn't, it was close to it.
Yeah, we ran it at San Fernando.
San Fernando,
and
okay. Well,
packed the
yeah.
house there. Yeah, but how do you like that one right there? We were changing motors after a run. We had to go run another track the next day. And we've got 300 miles to drive, and we're there. We grabbed this little wood cart here to drag the motor around on, and we're there taking pictures and bolting the headers on and that. It's all backwards, and then, of course, someone added a little artistic value
Right.
to it. But we always had fun. That was the trick, and that's what drug me into it so heavy. Over here, they named a street in my name right down here. And that was at Blaney Drag Strip. They took and made them all into the racers that used to race there. They turned
really?
it into a housing project.
At Blaney? That was
At Blaney.
That's South Carolina,
South
wasn't it?
Carolina.
Yeah.
And I had Ivo Circle. That was the main street in town.
Is that right?
And Garlett's was just a side street.
side street.
But that's where it all should be.
Oh.
What can I tell you?
Well, you just like to rub it in, don't you, when you get a
Any
chance?
chance I get. Let me tell you, I used to drive this guy crazy.
Well,
And they were so much fun, both the Dons. So, and of course that's from my 80th birthday there as well. And the model deal was pretty good too. That worked out really nice. Yeah, take a peek down at this one right down here. It was the first one, the first side-by-side 7-second run.
right.
I had run in the 7s, and Perdone did it at Long Beach 2 weeks later. So I drug match racing out here. I went to CJ and I says, "You've got the 2 7-second cars here.
Right.
Let's take and, pardon me, they were 7-second cars. Sorry,
Right, 7,
I get
yeah.
all those things
Right.
mixed up. So anyway, he says, I got 40 dragsters down here. I don't have to hire anybody in the run. Because I told him, since we're just making runs, we'd have to have 500 apiece.
Uh-huh.
And we went out to San Gabriel and did that, and they packed the house. And he says, "Gee, thanks, that was a good idea." I says, "Wait a minute, here's the next one.
Uh-huh.
No one's ever raced against a jet car.
Right.
What we ought to do is I'll race the jet car.
I was there.
And you advertise it
Yep.
that if he gets out in front of me, he's going to burn me up, So let's do that next week.
I
And
remember
said,
that well.
No.
That
Wait
was,
until we have some time to advertise
Yeah.
it. So I trained all these guys. So when I packed the place again, match racing was on.
Maybe that's the showmanship thing that's
It
in you
is.
from acting.
It
I mean,
is.
it's
It
showmanship.
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, you truly paved the way for a lot of these guys to become professional drag racers. I mean, I think you were probably the first guy to really go on a true tour.
I was the first guy that ever professionally went racing.
Right.
Making my money racing.
No,
drag
that's
racing all
a
over the
true
country.
story. And so a lot of these guys making their living today are indebted to you without even knowing it, probably a lot of them, you know. But it's,
Yeah.
you know, there were some pioneers that really paved the way in this sport that, you know, unfortunately some of them that, you know, but no, the Jungle Gems, he was one of the next big names to
He was.
come along. But
Yeah.
you paved the way for him. You know, the tracks that you had booked in, I think they were looking for the next act, and the funny car
Yeah.
thing came along.
Yeah.
You know,
See, the funny cars weren't out yet at that time.
Well, let's sit down and chat a little bit
All right.
about this here.
Okay. All right.
Let's see, Cinder, you, why don't you sit on that side, Tom, and
Okay.
step over the cord
right.
there. All this high-tech stuff we got here.
Yeah. Well, I'm a chess player, as you could see. It's a little more challenging than checkers.
Hello, Cinder, you got us in here?
Yeah, I got you in here. Let me get my tripod set up. So
Okay.
sorry for the.
Well, let's talk drag racing,
The
Tom. At
wiggle.
some point,
Okay.
I mean, your acting career, and you're getting a little bit older. When did what pulled you into drag racing? Did you have a friend or somebody that kind of steered you in that direction, or
There was a guy named Tom Jant.
Tom Jant?
You just did a show with him
Yeah.
a while back.
All right.
here, Yeah. And he was in the Road Kings here in Burbank.
Uh-huh.
And I was desirous to get into that. But,
Okay.
you know, I was the funny guy with hair that looked like a potted plant.
So how old are you now?
And I was, well, I was 16.
16.
when I
Okay.
got my car.
Just got your driver's license.
Just got it. We ran that. I took it out and took it to Saugus and ran 66 miles an hour.
What was it?
It was a Buick
Oh,
Super.
Buick. Okay. That's
Myself and my girlfriend across the street, we got our bike. We took our bikes, went up to town, got all these brochures, and I said, "Well, that one looks good to me." And I said, "What is it? A buck?" I didn't even know how to say Buick. So I bought that, but it had a straight 8 in it and a Dynaflow, and it didn't run very fast. We went out, got sawed off at Saugus, and says, "Well, that isn't so good."
Yeah.
But they came out with those Sentries that had a V8 in them.
okay.
And that thing, I went down to Pomona and I won 2 trophies. One for class, I set a class record, and one for winning, and the hook was set.
Really?
But drifting back just a little bit to Tom Jant, he had a 32 canary yellow car with an Oldsmobile in it. And he asked me one time if I'd like to go to the races with him.
Really?
And he came out before the sun came up. I was sitting on the curb so I wouldn't miss him when we went. He took me out there to San Fernando.
To San Fernando.
And one of the Road Kings, Jim Miles, had
Right.
a fuel coupe. And he took that thing and made a run, and they let me ride up the track in the pickup truck. And it left black tire marks from the starting line all the way to the finish line. And all the way pushing them back up the road, I said, "I gotta have me one of these."
Gotta have you one of these. It was set, huh?
The hook was set.
Oh, that's great. Tom Jant's a great guy. I've gotten to be really close with him. We have lunch every couple of weeks. But there's a lot of history there that the outside world probably no clue who Tom Jant was.
Yeah, well, it was so much fun because it was so much camaraderie.
Yeah, right.
In the thing, you know.
And the Road Kings was it still is a big deal, right?
It was.
Yeah,
It is.
those guys. I mean, Jim Miles is still kicking, and he's an original member,
Yeah,
and the
they're
club's
all-
70 years old.
They're a little milder than
What-
we.
But so yeah, but then what came after the Buick, the full-bodied car? I mean,
Well, I went out to the drag strip. First thing I did was set a track record. People didn't know that the Buicks ran that fast, you
Right.
know? And that, of course, just put another brick in the wall, you know. But it kept kicking the transmission out of it. If you stopped at 50 miles an hour like you were supposed to in shift, it would work. But if you wound it up to 70, it would run quicker, you know. So I thought, well, boy, this is a bear when my car kept breaking down. And Buick threatened me not to put any more transmissions in the thing.
Okay.
So I saw Norm Kubowski over in Bob's with his little short pickup
Right.
roadster. Back to the, boy, I got to have me one of those. And he had a Cadillac in it, and I thought, if these Buicks run this good in a big car, they should run good there
Right.
too. And that's when I built my street roadster.
Well, that's an iconic car too. It's it's been restored, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. It was down to the museum there for a long time.
All right.
But we went with it. We never got beat with it. We set the track record at every place that we ran, but they kept protesting because it was a street roadster, you know. So finally, I got so mad at them. I went down to Long Beach. There was a guy. I can't remember his name. Anyway,
Max Bolchowski?
No. Bolchowski was my mentor.
Okay.
He was fooling around with the Buick motors, and he showed me, see this round piston here, it goes in that round roll.
Okay.
It wasn't quite that bad,
Right,
but
okay,
he was a very big helping hand.
But
So I took and I went and got an old sprint car, and it was painted yellow. It was all dented up, and I mounted it onto a Model A frame, put my Buick in there, and when I welded the bracing, I let it just burn off the sides of the paint. And
Okay.
I put 2 big antennas on the thing with foxtails on the top of them.
okay.
Little tiny fenders, but of course they had to have mud flaps on
Right.
the bottom of them. And then I took my dad's meat cleaver and buried it in the tailgate. Now, I tack welded it in there. I didn't
Right.
want it to fall out and cut somebody's head off. But when we went through the lights, them tins would bend over, and then foxtails would be going around like that.
So, but this car met the rules, basically?
It then met all the rules. They were complaining that the Roadster didn't have enough frontal area.
Okay.
So I put a Model A radiator on a Model T body. So
Okay.
it ran from the radiator down to it. And I labeled everything. I had a couple of cherries on the side. It says, here's mine, where's yours, etc. Mickey
Oh.
Thompson came back into the pits, shaking his head. And he says, I don't let jalopies run down here. And so that thing makes a jalopy look good. And told me not to let the door hit me in the ass.
Is that right?
Yeah,
He told
he
you?
was serious. That was it. Go off with his head. So I had to go down and run Colton for a little while.
Yeah.
But then I had that Roadster, of course. We slipped another motor into it and went over to Bob's and Don the Beachcomber Johnson.
Okay.
He had bought Kent Fuller. Kent Fuller was building a rail for himself. And he got in a fight with his brother-in-law, who had a Buick to put in it. And they split up, so Johnson bought the dragster. And he was sitting next to me, and he says, how'd you like to put that engine into a dragster? And, sure, why not? So we went out with it and run 140 miles an hour. Oh, that was heart-stopping.
Right.
And we won Polk Colton and San Fernando on Saturday and Sunday, and I was sitting on Fuller's porch on Monday morning. I gotta have me another one of those.
You had to have one like that. Was it a similar configuration?
No, it was quite a bit different.
Was it?
Fuller's was he didn't have the money to bend the roll bars enough, so it was a little rough.
Right.
But I copied Scotty Finn's. I had an awful lot to do with these
Yeah.
things. Fuller and I went around. And
Well, I'm sure that's the first car I saw you run with it. Did you ever run at San Gabriel with that car, the original San Gabriel?
Yeah, we ran everywhere all the
I think
time.
that's where I saw you run the first time, was the very first San Gabriel. I think you were
I
out
was
there.
racing the Hustler out there,
Yeah.
and Art Chrisman had put it on gasoline.
Uh-huh.
So with my little shifter, I jumped so far out on them blown cars, they couldn't catch me by the other end.
Right.
I was looking over my shoulder going into the lights all the time. But it was a killer. It was the first car to run a 950. Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I remember.
No,
This was a long time ago.
Well, it was, but the fuel ban was on then, so
The
there was
fuel
more
ban
interest
was
with
on.
gas classes,
Yeah.
and even our Chrisman's running gas at times because of that. But that car, well, of course, the first Bakersfield race in '59, you won top gas
We
at that
won
race.
top gas.
You probably had the trophy for that event, I imagine.
Well,
So
I just happened to somewhere.
Is
in
it?
my memory around it.
that was a big event. I mean, that first
It was.
Bakersfield in '59, the U.S. Fuel and Gas Championships, and here you had an injected Buick, and Howard Twin Bear, I think, was there, wasn't it, that year?
Yeah, well, it all started. Howard had that Twin Bear, and Garlitz, we'd seen him in the magazines.
Right.
So Smokers got Garlitz to come out here, and they were going to match race each other. That's what started the thing. Everybody went up there and bought their cars, and as you know, it turned into the Woodstock of drag
Oh, it
racing.
was. It was a big deal. I was 18 years old, but to be there, it's a pretty nice thing to know that you were part of that first event.
Unbelievable.
I've got pictures I took of you. I couldn't get alongside the track, but in the pits, I got two or three pictures of your car.
Well, that's when my roar turned from a meow into a roar. I won that thing there.
Well,
and we pulled into the winner's circle, and Art Christman, of course, won the fuel part of it. Oh, I was so inspired by him. I was afraid to talk to him.
He was a great guy. Art Christman was
absolutely
one of the finest human beings I've ever encountered. But, well, I mean, we keep stepping up the ladder here. That single engine, and you actually had a supercharger on one engine. I think I saw a configuration. No, that was the twin. Okay, let's go back to the single.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. The single, I wanted to build a twin.
Uh-huh.
It finally I ran out of horsepower. So I had to do something. And they were still on gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw Howard's twin, and I said, now that might work.
Mm-hmm.
So we took and put two Buicks in the thing, and it ran the first 8-second run that anyone ever run. It run 170 miles an hour, 180, that no one had done before. So it was the baddest bear in the woods, But I had a heck of a time getting Fuller. He hated my multi-engine cars. So he said, you can run as good with a blower if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So he made me build a blown Buick. So I retarded the mag and underdrove the blower. Anything I could do is slow it down. And it got killed. And I says, okay, now let's build my twin motor car.
Build a twin, right.
And I traded Tony Nancy for his Roadster, for his unblown motor, and I took it on tour the first time as a spare motor, and he took my blown motor. And one afternoon, just for the fun of it, we stuck his blown motor into the car. There's a picture of it right up here on the wall, and it right over there. But anyway, we ran one motor forward and one backward. What we did was we tilted them, and then we meshed the starter ring gears together, so that we transfer the power from this one to this one. Howard put them in different ways, but it was a little daintier this way. And then drove it off one drive shaft. But we weren't brave enough to run the blown motor backward. We ran it forward and ran the other one backward. And I thought I'd have to take those ring gears. We put two of them on each flywheel. And I thought I'd have to take and put graphite on them or something to keep them going. And I looked at it when we bought it out here for the exhibit that time, and the ring gears looked perfect.
Really?
They're a little rusty from being around for a long time.
That was a cool car.
Don't sell your ring gears short. They did good.
Wow, was that the first car you took on tour where you actually?
Yeah, what they did is they called up out here, and they says, okay, we hear about these all guys in magazines all the time and everything. So 10 of the tracks back there, they used to meet and they'd talk about insurance and, the various things. And so they said, why don't we hire some of them guys from out in California and get them to come back here. We'll offer them 10 races, one every every weekend. And the deal with me was when I was in a movie, if I wasn't making one right at the time, I was unemployed. So I could go if I wanted to. They called up several guys out here, but they had shops to shut down and everything. So we went back, and we were the first guys ever to tour the country like that.
Did you go by yourself the first time around, or did you have?
No. There was a kid that was in the club with us, and he was building a Buick engine for a Roadster. And he wanted to talk to me to find out how to run a Buick motor. And a friend of his took me out there, this before he got in the club, took me out there and he says, he's a pretty good painter, and we looked at what he was doing. And so I said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you paint my twin engine car that was building at the time, and I'll put your motor together for you. And his name was Don Perdome.
Don Perdome. I can see this coming. Unbelievable.
You could read that one all ways away, right?
Yeah, but that's history. I mean, that's a big piece of history.
Yeah,
I mean,
and he was actually a pretty good kid to have along with me too. He used to have a horse laugh that would just, if something struck him funny in the room, he'd start laughing about it, and he'd go,
really?
and he'd have the whole room laughing with him. But then, when we were on tour and we were starting home again, I says, listen, why don't you give up that Roadster? And I've got my single-engine car hanging up in the rafters, and put your motor in that. And if you like it, buy it from me. And if you don't, just give it back again, you know? And boy, that was the wrong mistake. I gave it to him on the no money down, no payment plan. And it was all okay, except when he saw me making money at drag racing, he knew he could make a little money out of it, you know? Boy, that sparked it with him. He got in that Buick car, and I talked Zutzel into putting his Chrysler in there, and that made the snake. You know?
That was it.
Oh, when I first met him, he was just a friendly little old garden worm, you know. He turned around and grew fangs on me.
You created a monster, didn't you? Okay.
Snake.
Well, you had some interesting crew guys over the years too, you know.
Yeah,
but
well, he paid his dues.
well, absolutely. I mean, another guy that came from literally, you know, the wrong side of the tracks almost to make it, you know, another John Force kind of a story, which is wonderful to have that kind of success story. And he's mellowed some over the years too.
Yeah, I understand. He's, you know, gotten real friendly. Well, he had a lot on his shoulders.
He was intense. You know? I mean, I think it took that intensity to race on the level that he did. And you saw it with Bob Glidden and some of those guys. They were eat up with it. But
but see, I still did it for a lot of fun, and that, you know, it kept the kid in me all my life. Because my crew guys were all younger than me, you know. So we still had water balloon fights and whatever. In fact, Perdone, when we were on tour one time, he was rattling my cage. So I took a shampoo and I poured it out and put 10-weight oil on it.
Oh, good.
Because it both, you know, they were both tan and looked like each other, you know. He went in there and put it in his hair. And the more water he added to it, the worse it got, you know. And he didn't want to give up that I'd got him. So he took the hand soap and washed it out about 10 times, you know. And he come walking out of the bathroom, and the hair was like that. And I said, do you know anything strange? And he says, no, I didn't notice anything. But the two Dons were so much fun to tease.
God.
Especially Garlets. The more I teased him, the madder he got, and the madder he got, the more I stirred the pot. You know?
No, you wouldn't do that, would you? Oh, God, the history in here is incredible.
Let me give you my best Don Garlett story.
Okay.
We were down at Pomona at the Winter National. It's not my best, but one of my
One of the better ones,
Okay. And we were push starting them still down the backside of the staging range, you know. So we had just put the headers on the Zoomy headers on. They were pointing it up in the air. And when I pulled up at Long Beach, the lighting down there was terrible, you know. So you could hardly see because there's a flame standing where you got to look alongside the blower, you know. So we went down to Pomona, and his car, you know, we used to just sort of leave him in the pits and go do things. I went over to his car, filled up the headers with confetti.
Is that right?
And we pulled out, and he went to start the car, and we pushed him pretty fast.
Right,
so when the nitro hit him, he'd get a nice clean start.
Right.
He let out the clutch, and the whole world turned confetti in front of it. I saw the car go like that, and he was looking for me in the pits.
God, I wish I'd have thought of that. But no, that push-down road at Pomona, it was pretty short, too.
Yes.
So you had to get with it and make that left-hand turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, the push starts could be exciting back then. You know, I remember the one year we had 3 of them that got into the fence, and Coletta was one of them.
Yeah.
And a guy named Fred Farndon was the other, and I think the Beaver Brothers car was the third one. But let's go back to, you know, so now you got the single-engine car, you've got the twin-engine car.
I get carried away.
Well, no. This is exactly what we wanted. But when did the fuel bug? I mean, at some point, I'm gonna really go fast now, so go to nitro.
Well, that just happened automatically when they quit gasoline.
Right.
I had built that 4-engine car, but I knew it wasn't going to work. I went back east with the twin, and they started popping up everywhere. And I thought, boy, if people like 2 of them, they'd love 4 of them. The trouble was switching from the single to the dual was tough. But once I got onto multi-engine, I could put 10 of them in there. So we built that 4-motor car, but I knew it was going to load the front wheels. Not only that, and people don't know this, it blazed the front tires, but it buried the rear tires because you had to have a place to push from, or the thing wouldn't go down the track. So there was a lot of thought, and I got the Margie series going at the same time. You guys said, okay, you can go run fuel again. Well, I wanted to race. I didn't want to go out and make... NHRA, they looked at the car and they says, well, they were afraid people would start building it, that thing happened to run good before it was running. And they were too heavy. They'd run through the guardrail, you know, if they got away from them. So I abandoned that car and went fuel racing with the fuel car.
But that 4-engine car turned out to be probably one of the biggest money makers the sport's ever had.
If I had not done that, I just wonder, you know, I've stood the test of time. It's 40 years since I sat in a race car at a national event.
Well, I remember the last one in Orange County. But the fuel car, I mean, you were hooked up with Zuschel at the time, weren't you?
So we were going to build a fuel car. If you've ever noticed on Garlits, he doesn't have any lips. He's burned them off so much. He smiles like a chap. And I didn't want to go all through that with learning how to run fuel. So I remembered turning Zuschel onto Berdone. So I asked Zuschel, I says, I opened a chassis shop. It was Tom's hobby shop more than anything. So we built a chassis for it. And I says, I'll give you chassis if you put your engine in it. And he says, well, okay. So then I said, well, do you have a driver yet? He says, no. I said, well, why don't I drive it then? I mean, it was all of the plot. And we decided on Sunday, and on the following Saturday, we were up in Seattle, Washington, because they were going to give him and Cannon $500 to go up there, and I wanted to go up to the World's Fair. We went up there, and we ran an 08, an 808 with the thing right off the bat. Was extraordinary. Garlits was up there. All them animals from the, you know, from the Northwest were up there as well. We came down to Garlits and myself at the end, and we beat them. And we beat them. We didn't, we outran them. And boy, what a way that was to start off the fuel thing. Then we came down here and broke the 7-second barrier within a couple of weeks after that happened.
The San Gabriel.
That was at San Gabriel.
Right, yeah. And that's where I was writing. I think somebody posted a story recently with the headline with you breaking that, and there my little byline was right below it, down below it. But no, San Gabriel was you know, that's where you ran the jet car deal against Romeo Palomini's car. And, you know, it was only there for a couple of years. With Jack Tice was the guy that ran St. Gabriel, and I'm sure you worked a lot with him to make your deals. But,
I trained him.
No, I'm sure you did. But no, that was TV Tommy was still is a big deal.
Berdone dominated Long Beach, and I dominated Irwindale. Well, as long as we had our own little place there, why go bat heads with each other on the thing, you know. So it worked out well, but we did that first match race, as I say, at Irwindale. There.
That was you two of the first 7-second cars in Top Fuel. That was a big barrier then to break into the 7s. Had a tire about that wide, probably. You know, it's but Zuschel, you raced with him for a while, and then pretty soon you probably had your own stuff.
Well, we had 2 mechanics in one car, and that didn't work out too well. And he was only 19 years old. I would get down to the other end, and we'd run good. He'd come over and tell me he was the kid. So whatever you say. But, you know, he went up to Seattle with me, and they called up from back east and wanted me to come back there and run the fuel car. Well, Zuschel didn't want to go traveling. You know, he was a 19-year-old kid. He'd come into home, throw his clothes on the floor, and they were back in the closet ready to go. And he wasn't ready for a year-long tour with Ivo anyway. You know, so I took the car myself and went back there, and Well, I had the TV series going, running summer reruns at the time.
Uh-huh.
And so I'd send back little film clips and everything to the drag strip, and they said, "What are we going to do with these?" I said, "Well, go tell your ABC station that Haywood Botts from the Margie Show was going to be running his race car again." And I had a lot to do, I think, with putting a little spark into drag racing.
Yeah, well, you did. I mean, I'll go back to the same thing. I really think you laid the groundwork for a lot of these guys to make their living at drag racing. Going to those tracks, and the tracks could see that they could bring in talent and entertainment. But your stuff was always so far ahead. I mean, not only just the car, but your tow equipment. I mean, a glass-sided trailer.
I know.
Okay.
I know. If you build a car with 4 motors in it and put glass sides in your trailer, people seem to remember it.
Well, you don't sleep at night, so you must have been awake all night thinking about this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. No, I just got a little vampire in my soul, that's all. No, that isn't as dumb as it sounds. Because, I kept half the kids in Burbank out of jail, I think. Because at 10 o'clock when it was time to go out and get in trouble, they'd stop by Ivo's place and we'd bench race.
Yeah.
Then they had to go to school or work and they'd go home. Then I'd get my work until the sun came up again, And when we were traveling, we raced 8 times in 1 week one time.
Yeah.
We were in Sunday afternoon in Adco, New Jersey, and 100 miles an hour at 100 miles away at Englishtown on Sunday to do that, But if I didn't get up until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd race, and then you'd have to travel 300-400 miles because they had to get far enough apart so the advertising didn't overlap each other. So the old dogs knew tricks. I just used to do that all the time,
Well, then the farm motor car, you put Tom McCurry on the road with it, didn't you, at some point?
I was supposed to put Perdone on the road with it. But his wife says, if you leave town for another season, I'm not going to be waiting for you when you came home. So that stopped that. So then I put Tom McCurry in it. I didn't put him in it. Well, I did for a few races out here. Then he bought it from me.
He bought the car from you.
Went on his way.
And he did that for quite a few years, didn't he?
He had it for about 4 years, and then he put that station wagon body on the thing.
Yeah.
And it brought it back to life again because of all the funny cars. And of course, with myself, each year it'd be actually we built 5 different cars when I had my shop. We built the original Barnstormer, and then each weekend we'd come out with a new car. It was 124 inches. We built one 150 inches. And the frame rails were so close together that when I pulled on the brake, the pan would go down and hit the ground. I says, well, they're never going to build them this long. We put a couple of struts in it and shipped it off to a customer, know. So it was a big research and development.
I mean,
basically is what it was.
That was a cool time in drag racing because every week it was something different, and the cam grinders, their ads. Drag news was everything. If you wanted to keep up with the sport, you had to read drag news. Because there was no internet, there was no TV program. The magazines were 3 months, 4 months behind anything. So drag news was it. And every week it seemed like quicker and faster and quicker and faster, and 1 motor, 2 motors, 3 motors. Lefty Motorsbach had a 3-motor car I saw one time.
Know.
But and 4 motors. And, it was, sooner or later things had to stabilize, and I can understand why you don't have that now. It was just an evolutionary thing at that time. But so we raced the front engine top fuel cars, and your last front engine top fuel car was at one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen. It was Don Long, I believe, built the chassis on that one.
I went big bucks.
Hannah body, just full chute pack, the whole deal.
Brand new glass trailer,
right,
and everything. It was state of the art. I had a candy apple red Cadillac Eldorado.
Well, your tow cars were always either Cadillacs. I think you Corvette one time, didn't you have?
We put that up on the top of the truck.
That's when you had a truck.
We used a truck.
That must have been a trick getting that up there on that.
I didn't do it. Tarzan
did.
That was his job.
But again, showmanship. I mean, I really think that word applies to you as much as anything. But haul ass too, go fast.
It
and,
wasn't only showmanship. When we went out with that fuel car, we broke the 7-second barrier, run 190 with it. But the problem was they wanted me back east. See, that's what clipped my wings, because up until then, we'd come home and we'd change things all around every weekend. But when you went on the road, you had to run what you had for the entire season before you could change it. You just couldn't do stuff like that when you were out on the road.
Yeah.
So it was hard because, out here, we were changing stuff all the time.
So generally a season, you'd hit the road probably springtime,
We'd hit it
April,
March,
May, and March.
Last of March and the 1st of November, we'd come back home again.
Oh. Did you have a place you centered out of? Did you have
No, that was it.
You
the
just
back of the motel, empty gas stations, what have you. But you didn't break them that much in those days.
But your car was a barnstormer that didn't fit. I mean, it was barnstorming around the country.
I was proud of it. I gave up a flourishing little movie career because I did that for so long. But them RoboCop outfits, they were just too much fun.
No, I mean.
And then I built 8 front motor cars, and that was the only mistake. We went over to England and raced Garlets over there. It's something you dream about, to take a modern day fuel car back to Saugus and make a run, see what people would think about it. And that's what it was like when we went over to England.
I'm sure.
And I thought I was going to have to fight Garlets for the first run because I wanted to make the first run over there. So I took the zoomies off and put the old weed sprayers back on again because they made far more noise, And he was so gung-ho he was going to let me make the first run. So we push-started it, and I idled it up. They were on old RAF landing bases there that were 200 feet wide and 2 miles long, So I idled it right into the staging area, and there must have been 100 people standing there. In the middle of them, I let the lightning loose, and all I saw was rear ends and elbows running in all directions. They thought the thing had blown up, and I said, yes, just what I wanted.
Showmanship.
Tommy,
That was
if I can here, this is the highest viewership we've had live in a long time. This is so great. But you're talking about Garlets, and a few people are asking for specific stories.
Yeah.
So Rich Martin asked Tommy about running Garlets at Bunker Hill in the rain in Indiana. Do you remember that?
Oh, tell him he's wrong. It was Muncie, Indiana.
Okay.
And we went over there to run, and I was caught in a funny place there because I just finished the state of the art of my last front motor car, and Garlits came out with his rear motor car. And he abused me all year that year. So we went up to run and stage. And when we pulled up there, it started to rain. You could see that Garlits could see little drops on his goggles. And he shut the motor off. And I went up and staged. And he says, boy, he must really want to win. He's going to go down there and run in the rain. I took off, ran dry as a bone. And you ain't going to believe it, but it was raining on his side of the track and not on my side of the track. It wasn't just pouring down rain with a place. It was enough to make the track wet. But talking about Garlits, what I did with him one time when we went over to England racing, they had these round L on a round stick-on piece of thing that they put on the side of people's cars when they were learning how to drive. So I went down to their DMV and got one of them and stuck it on the side of Garlits' car. And when we went out there, he never said anything. All of a sudden, I saw this mushroom cloud coming over on the other side of the pits. I said he just saw it. And He was furious.
Oh, God.
But then he thought it was funny and left it on for a while.
Ed Pink is saying here.
Ed Pink, my hero.
Ed always tunes in. He's one of the first to tune in. That's so fun for us to see that. He says, "Ask Tommy about bringing blocks to me in the Cadillac, loaded to the ground."
Oh, yeah. Well, my mother was my parts chaser. See, I did all the work myself. We couldn't afford to hire guys. When me and Tarzan and myself would come home in November, he'd get out and I wouldn't see him till March again, you know. So he just opened his shop. And I actually kept him in business for a while because everything I did was 4 times. I did the line bore it first time and bore him 4 times, and he did my heads for me and all the seats and everything 4 times. And I'd load them all into the car, and she'd come driving in there with the front wheels almost hanging off the ground to get there.
Fred Say sent me this message yesterday. Asking, ask Ivo about the great dually truck hood switch.
The hood on a truck? Okay.
That was the all-time TV Tom joke. See, what the problem is, I think I made one too many situation comedies. And when we'd sit down and read the script together, we'd all read it and we'd say, well, wouldn't it be funnier if we did it this way and what have you? So I think funny into everything, you know. So we were up racing at Union Grove, and it was a Saturday and a Sunday race, and it rained on Saturday. So everybody was sleeping. We went to bed early on Saturday night, you know. So we were sitting there. At that time, everybody had big dually trucks and chaparral trailers. That was the uniform of the day. Of course, I had my glass trailer. We went out there and we took all the red hoods and put them on the black cars and the yellow and the green. I'm telling you, it looked like Mom's patchwork quilt out there in the parking lot. And Perdone come walking out the lobby the next morning and he says, "That damn Ivo." And he says, "How do you know it was Ivo?" And he says, "Because it's got Ivo written all over it." You know, boy, they were looking for me on that one because there sits my glass trailer and my hood on my truck. Gee, I wonder who did it.
Tom Jant is also watching.
Tom Jant, oh, yeah, Tom.
Here's another fine mess you've gotten me into.
This is a guy watching that got you to your first drag race, right?
He did.
Tom Jant,
That's
unbelievable.
him. That's the guy.
Unbelievable.
He's watching, and he's asking you to tell some Road King stories, the poker runs.
Well, well, we were dangerous in those days, you know. A poker run, you take a little bag of lime and throw it out on the street. One guy, like a hare and hound race, a guy take off with this box full of these, and if he turned right, he threw it in the middle. If there wasn't anything, he just kept going straight. And I got my 2 cents into it. And they used to just put the cards in a spot and had 5 stops. In envelopes, you come back, open up the card, and the best hand took half the pot, and the first guy there took half the pot. So it ran into a road race thing. And I'd take and hide them. Well, I took them into a theater in Hollywood, and we put them in the last row. And all the Road Kings run in, you know, it would say where the next stop was. I'd put it up on these big high-powered lines. You'd have to climb up there, go out on the end and pull them up by a string. We took and put it on that big gas thing downtown. And Perdone was up there throwing them 80s off the top of the thing. And everybody abandoned me. But talking about M80s, that Jant, he'd come over here and I'd be in the front garage working. And he'd slip an M80 under the door. And the thing would go off, and I mean, it was loud.
It's a serious firecracker.
It was an M80.
You ought to know, Papa. You ought to
were
know.
hanging out there. Took me a long time to catch them.
Oh, God. Anybody else in there? I mean, this is great. I mean,
no.
I don't even know what time. We're
Who cares? We can go until I'm still at about 60% battery.
Okay,
so
we'll go a little. We don't, we're certainly not going to interfere. We're not going to interfere with his bedtime. I guarantee you. This is.
We're avoiding traffic. The way I look at it.
Yeah. Get back, but so all right, we're into the back motor phase then,
Right.
and then. How many of those cars do you think you had before?
I had 7 of those.
7 of those.
Yeah. The only one mistake, just a little step back here, was when we went to England. Steve Swaggia was Tony Nancy's favorite faithful dog, and he designed some streamlined cars, and I built one, and it didn't work. Because a teardrop is big on the bottom and small on the top. These were big in the back because of the tires and small in the front, and it kept trying to turn around in the lights.
I recall that. It was a beautiful looking car.
Beautiful car.
Really.
I wish it could have run, but it just didn't work. But when I built the rear motor car, it ran quite well.
Yeah.
And I had a Woody car. I spent the big buck. And Garlett's, he had been building them for a year, so I got the latest model one. And I used to buy a lot of my parts from Black and Pink and all the big guys. Got hot tipped on what was going on with a lot of them too. So we ran that one for quite some time.
But you did a lot of your own tuning. I mean, right?
I did all my
your own tuning. So this wasn't just spoiled little actor driving. I mean, you worked. I mean, you ran those cars.
I built kind of a Pandora's box there with that one, because when I went back to there and we'd do interviews for television and that, nobody would get on television, but because of my movie background. And I'd send them film clips and all of that, and it kept me busy because I had to work during the week to get, see the newspapers and all the rest of the stuff. But and I've even forgotten where I was going here now.
But working on your own cars.
Yeah. Okay. So we played the part that I was a rich millionaire playboy movie star who just happened to drag race. And the press ate that up with a spoon.
Yeah.
So I always played the part that I didn't do it.
That's understandable.
It was just good business, I stayed in business when a lot of other guys couldn't,
Right.
Everybody, Tarzan, they took off to the fact that he was my crew guy. Well, he was my crew guy, but I wouldn't let him touch the motor. He could take it apart, but he couldn't put it back together again.
Tarzan there was a piece of work there too. How did that connection work out?
He lied and I swore to it. I mean, we got in more trouble than you could shake a stick at. And then we had T.C. Lemon.
Oh, well.
Was running with Garlett's.
Right.
And T.C. and Tarzan were the troublemakers, and they got me in trouble with
you didn't have anything to do with it, okay?
But we all wrote each other. I had everything to do with it.
Tarzan was he had a big teddy bear, I think, but at the same time, pretty intimidating.
I didn't really get in a fight or anything, but he had that deep voice.
Oh, yeah.
He had quite a build on him.
Oh, yeah.
Perdone was scared to death of him. He was my bodyguard, We were up one time racing up in Modesto up there. And we had Perdone went down to San Francisco. Tarzan and I went there, tore the room apart, took his prize hot rod 10 top hot rodders, hot rod magazine jacket, and broke open, and Zucha was in there sleeping. We couldn't wake him up. So we broke open a pillow and put snow all over it out of the pillowcases because we put chairs all over the bed where Zucha was sleeping and everything. Perdone came home and knew it was Ivo again, and they took McCurry where I was staying and ran him. I told him at the desk, I says, don't tell anybody where I am because the fans bother me all the time. But they listened at the door because I used to have this big window fan that I would run all the time because Tarzan snored and it would cut it down. So they listened to the doors and he's in here. They ran McCurry through the door. Perdone had a waste paper basket full of feathers, and Zuchel had one full of oil, and they oiled and feathered me in the bed. I'm telling you, they had the cops down there. They were going to sue us all. And then Perdone all of a sudden realized his car was on an open trailer. And he says, if there's any fooling with the cars, I just got my glass trailer. There's going to be a lot of broken windows in the glass trailer. And Tarzan in the background said, if there's any broken windows, we're going to hang someone and shot them tonight. So it went around and around like that.
Oh God, that was an error that I mean it could never be repeated.
You know, it kind of, that's what lost interest with me in drag racing, when it came to the point where you had to break them all the time.
Yeah.
And then you had to have a sponsor. And, you know, they started dictating as to how it was running. And I just liked the mom apple pie and the American flag days, when you could, in the essence of drag racing, go out and strike across the country and have all that fun.
Well, you definitely made your mark. I mean, and you went to full cycle. You went to the back motor fuel cars, and then you had a jet car in there too for a little bit. Did you run that for a whole season?
We were up at Epping, New Hampshire, and Arfons was up there, and he had that two-seater car.
Mm-hmm.
So he came over to me and says, "Would you like a ride in the jet car?" Well, of course, I was game for anything, anytime.
Right.
You know? And everybody says, that thing doesn't leave very good or anything. But it did run 300, and I wanted to run 300, you know. So he took off and went down there, and them things left pretty good, because I was sitting there relaxed, and my head went back, and I had to pull it back forward again. And right in the lights at Epping, it took a little dip like that and threw the car up in the air, and it felt like a balloon loose in the air, you know. But he gave me a good ride and drove it all the way through. He knew what was going on. And they had a big firelight on the top of the thing. And on the pole I was hanging on to, there was a button. And he says, "No, I know you're a driver, so if it bothers you that I'm driving and you're not, just push on the button and it puts on a light on my dash and I'll shut it down." Well, I wasn't about to do that, you know. But come to find out, it was hooked up to that firelight. And if you push the button, it was the chicken shit light. And the announcer knew all about it.
Knew all about it, huh?
And he just said, "Oh, Ivo pushed the chicken shit button." Well, I didn't. I mean, I would, but I'd have had to walk back to the pits. I couldn't ride behind the stands. No, but that thing impressed me so much. I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
You know, I'd go out and try one, and it was great, you know. We'd pull up the starting line at night, and we had that big fire out the back. You'd let the thing idle and put it in the afterburner and hit the striker, and it'd put a ball of fire 50 feet off, you know, 10, well, you saw it.
Right, sure.
Times.
Yeah.
And I'd look up in the stands, and it was all dark up there, and then I'd do that, and I'd look up again, and there'd be 5,000 Cheshire cats up there, because everyone was smiling at me. They saw the flame, and I could see the light bouncing off of it.
You only run that for what, one season, didn't you?
We ran it for one season.
One season, yeah.
The mortality rate wasn't that good on those jets. And at that point, you know, I just came off of running a funny car.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that, you know, the competition cars are the high wire act. It was, I mean, the people loved them. Yeah. And it was a good ride, because you take off and it sort of run down the track. But when it hit 200 miles an hour, it went in 200 to 300 just like that. Yeah. And I flew mine one time. The track went downhill in Thompson, Ohio, and we used to come off the ramp there with the funny cars and the dragsters, and it'd take a little jump, and you'd go, well, that's exciting. But the jet was 4 degrees down, and the track went 6 degrees down. That honey came off the track about 8 feet, and sitting up in that pod up there, it felt like you were 80 feet off the ground. And it did a little wing over to the right, and hit the mud. It had been raining that day, and stopped in about 300 feet. And it threw my head forward so hard that it crushed the front side of 3 vertebrae. That's about that close to pulling your skull out of your spine.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a close call.
So that slowed me down a little bit. You know, it was new, but it wasn't big time.
You never really had I mean, the crash we talked about earlier is about as spectacular as you could have.
That was the one.
You know, but walk away.
Yeah.
But you never really got skinned up bad in a race car, did you? As far as
no. Well, no. I just was making a run in that four-motor car up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and the thing ran across a bump in the road, and it bottomed out. That thing was so close to the ground that I crushed 3 vertebrae in my back.
Did you? Huh.
But it was right between the shoulder blades, so that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But I pulled a arm out of the socket one time, burned up a foot real bad one time.
No, but I mean, I'm sure you ran on some racetracks.
We ran on dirt racetracks, even on some of these roundy tracks. And Tarzan was with me that time, and as I say, I wouldn't let him put the engine together, so I tied shop rags onto my knees and walked around and put the motor back together. I'd just been burned up once. I didn't want to try it again.
What was the most fun car to drive? If you could, I mean, just sheer pleasure to make a pass in that car. What style car was it?
Yeah, no, it was a toss-up. The four-motor car, the first fuel car was the car.
Mm-hmm.
And when we put the headers on it pointing up, because we'd smoked the tires from one end to the other,
right.
You know. And when you take and hit it, the fire would go up in the smoke and it'd turn all kinds of colors of oranges and reds and everything. And it was in the 60s, and I'd look up and say, far
out.
But then the funny car itself was the dragsters went straight as an arrow, but the funny car was all over the place. So Jungle Jim and I, we'd make track long burnouts. In fact, one time we didn't tell the crew guys when we did a burnout, we changed on the way going out. Mm-hmm. I let him go first because he'd run into the side of me. When we came back out of the smoke, the wrong car came back in front of the things, But they dart all over the place, so that put a lot into it.
Uh-huh.
And then if you blew the blower in those days, we didn't tie the blower down. Up she went.
Right.
And it was backed into the windshield, took the windshield out, and you'd be going along in a coupe, and then go bang, well, on bang, and blink your eyes like that. Look up, all of a sudden you're in a convertible. So each thing had kind of its own deal.
Yeah.
I guess if I had to pick just one car, as I said, that one
that would be it there.
That would have been, boy, that was worthwhile.
So speaking of that, Kenny Logan, who's also watching, is asking who you were racing when you crashed.
This one here? Tarzan, of course.
You were racing Tarzan?
I was racing Tarzan.
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry, you did mention that earlier.
Was that hot tuna? Was it the hot tuna car he drove?
It was the hot tuna car.
Yeah.
And as we pulled up through the staging lanes, it got to be apparent that I was going to race him. It was in a qualifying run. And so each time we moved a little, I leaned it a little, and then I put a little more percentage in, and I bumped the mag a little bit.
More.
by the time I got to the starting lane, I was burning pistons when I went by the Christmas tree.
Is that right? Oh, geez.
And he was out ahead of me. He left on me a little bit because we were, actually it was the last round of qualifying. It was the first time I ever had a chance I might not qualify. So I drove by him at the other end, and he looked out and saw me and says, he beat me. And then before the other end, he says, you disappeared as fast as you went by me. And that's when the thing turned over,
Well, it was spectacular, and thank goodness you walked away from it because
tell Kenny to give me a call.
You just did.
Okay. All right.
God, we could go on all night here. I mean, we'll have to do this again. I mean, keep yourself healthy, huh? All right.
I'll try.
You try, but
I'm getting a little long in the tooth here.
No. This is like I say, your day's just started. We're going to be the ones that wear out here in a minute. But there's so many memories in this. Because I was on the sidelines. I never raced. I was lucky enough to make a living, eventually doing my thing with NHRA and all that stuff. And we crossed paths so many times during that time. The exhibit you had at the museum that time was terrific. That probably the best single exhibit
right up here.
That
in fact, this was hanging.
Yeah. And of course, you don't do anything half-assed. It's going to be, Ivo showmanship.
I remember you told me we had one picture that's on the fireplace. She says, we need another one. I came down there, and the bumper was dragging the Cadillac. I had so many fingers. And he says, I've always said one picture. I says, yeah, I just brought them down so you can take a choice. And you started looking, and the next thing you know, they were all over the walls.
It was a great exhibit, and you're able to get the 2-motor car from Garlett's for a while and put it back in there, and of course it was a little scruffy when you got it back. So I think
we made it brand new.
You made it brand new.
When he came out and looked at it, he says, "You touched up the colors on my Rembrandt."
Yeah,
he would complain
about you
rope,
rebuilding his car. That's.
Do we have time for one more?
Sure, absolutely.
Right, okay. When we were down at the Winter Nationals one time, Garlett's was running better than me, and I had to race him. So I went over to him. We were parked right next to each other in the staging lanes. And I says, listen, I caught a piston in the last run. So if you see me out there driving around, stay out of my way because I got a face full of oil. And he looked over at the car, and I had rags wrapped around all the breathers.
The breathers,
we used to do that in those days,
right.
Kind of hold it back for a little while. And we took and pushed up to the starting line, and I'd taken a can of STP and poured it in one of the headers.
Okay.
So he looked over as we were staging, and smoke was just rolling out of that one header. Okay. And he bought it. And he left good and safe.
Right.
And I beat him with a better ET. He only fell for that once.
Oh, Lord. Oh, man. I was going to say you could write a book, but you did write a book.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Here's something you got to look at. My website. If you guys, it's deep. Look deep. It's got all my movie stuff on it. When you bring it up, it has the movies. It has racing. It has all the cars, the crashes, the fire burnouts. It's broken down into street rods, rear motor cars, front motor cars. It's bottomless, and I think you'd really appreciate it. Easy to remember. TommyIvo.com.
TommyIvo.com.
And if you don't remember that, just Google Tommy Ivo website. And it'll
Very cool. Well, that's good because we certainly didn't cover a fraction of your history here.
And I think what I'm going to do...
It's even got some of the Margie clips on it.
Yeah, your movie and TV career, we just touched on that early on, but you were talking to us about your world travel, which we touched on a little bit, but I will go through the house and take some still pictures and post those as a follow-up to the show. I know you had that little tuxedo, we were looking at. And then that travel map that you have in the other room showing all the places you've been.
Well, they always say, what do you do for life after drag racing? Because I broke my back in the 4-motor car, and that stopped racing. That was the end of it.
That was it.
As a artist, they used to shake you and everything. I couldn't do that anymore. So I was 45, but the beauty of it was I had the gypsy in my soul from traveling so much, So about every 6 months, bottom of my feet would start itching and I have to go somewhere. But I knew every bump in the road in the States. So we traveled the world. We went to the 4 corners of the world. And I got to do it when I was young, too. And that was really great.
That's cool. Quite a life. You've been entertaining since you were like 5 years old, I guess, right? What do you?
3.
3. Yeah. Well, you can't get started much earlier than that. And I remember the Orange County thing when you made the last pass and you burnt your gloves. Your driving gloves in the starting line. But that's an amazing career, absolutely amazing career.
Well, I'm pretty content.
Yeah, well, you should be.
How many people can say that?
No, Hall of Fame, I think you've been recognized. It was my pleasure at the very first Hot Rod reunion. That was a big deal. To put a Wally in your hands, because you had earned one so many times, but it just never happened at the national event. But you had to have a Wally at your...
Yeah, well, you talked about that going up to Bakersfield. And I thought, well, there'll be 10 people standing around bench racing.
Right.
And it'll be raining, of course, it's Bakersfield.
Right.
And look what it turned into. But offer me a Wally and I'll follow you anywhere.
Yep. Well, it's just, you've been recognized, throughout the sport. It's just a miracle that I mean, guys like you are still here. Now, next week, I don't think we've said anything
We
yet,
haven't.
Cinder.
We haven't said anything.
But next week, we're going to go down to Ed Iskandarian's shop and spend an hour with Iski.
Yeah.
Again, you talk about history there. You're a youngster compared to him.
Well, yeah, I used to make a joke, well, my guys did, that Ivo, my last name, was perfect. It stood for I'm very old.
I'm very old.
But now that I am very old, I kind of walk on that one a little lightly. It's too close to home. But we were all up at Bob Maravis's at the Super Bowl game up there. And Beckman stopped by here, and he had Esky in tow. And he walked in the front door, and, he's 101 years old in my house. Talk about the twilight zone. That was really something.
Yeah, well, we're going to get a chance to do that next week, so we're kind of making up for our time off here with some killer guys,
I mean, we've been wanting to do this with you since we started almost 3 years ago. And I apologize, but I'm so glad. This has been so much fun. And I don't think you do Facebook, right? But you'll need to get with Bob and Sharon, who live just a few minutes from here. And I hope that they will take you through this and read all the comments, because it's awesome, Tommy.
Oh, well,
there's so many people saying,
nice to be remembered.
There are people saying, please don't stop. We could watch this all night.
Well, the sport owes you a debt of gratitude for taking it to a different level, to the entertainment, the performance, the whole damn deal. It's just a miracle.
As I say, I'm content.
Well,
I gave up a flourishing movie career to go do this.
Right.
But I think I picked the right one.
Well, yeah, obviously, you probably couldn't have got by with some of the stunts on the movie set you did on the road.
Yeah.
Well, probably if you'd have been a lawyer, you would have
another one now.
How many racetracks do you think you ran at? Did you keep a count of the actual number?
No, I can't. It's everything that was ever made.
Right.
Because we traveled far enough to go to the moon and back 3 times over a 30-year period, of course. But we run every hole in the wall.
I heard once you signed up for a space launch one time when that
did.
You did?
Yeah, Eddie Hill. He's a big bug on this space thing too.
Right.
And he'd been down to where they trained the astronauts. And he sent me a book that he'd got to look through and everything. And we were both going to turn 60. He's about a month and a half older than me. You can tell it.
You can tell. He's still doing plenty good.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
I know. I'd love to get him on, but he won't go to the races anymore. But anyway, you guys.
So we were going to go up there, but they still haven't got it running.
Right.
But they've got a helmet thing with a virtual reality where it's like you're there. And of course, I got to have all the electronic toys.
Right.
And you can take that and crawl around on a space station and everything. It's just like being
Is
out
that
there.
right?
That's what I did for the pandemic, because I stayed bottled up here, I did with my age and everything. But I took that and traveled back across the world. You can fly all over the world like fireman, like Superman,
Yeah.
And so I went back and visited all the other places, and you didn't have to take an airplane trip or wear a mask when you got there. So it worked out good.
Quite a life. Well, we'll get out of here and let you wake up. I mean, you're still just getting ready to start your day, you know?
He had his Cheerios. We told he had his Cheerios right before we got here.
Gotta have my little round letter O's.
God, Tom, this has been great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think it worked.
I mean, it's just pretty simple formula.
We might have wore them out with the movies a little bit and the other.
Yeah, I mean, you've worked with some of the greatest directors in the world, and here we're doing a show with her telephone.
Yeah.
I've got a guy offering me another battery, so
oh, do you?
So we can keep going. Bruce Larson says hello. There's lots of comments about smoke bombs and M80s.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, again, that's what was so much fun.
You had a good time.
You know, we were just a herd of guys.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
we'd race somewhere. We'd all go out and have dinner and take over a restaurant somewhere. But now they won't let them talk to each other. You know, you put enough money in anything, and you spoil it.
It's totally changed. It's big business, and I understand it.
I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
It's two different things.
No, it is.
But there was so much satisfaction for myself to tune it and drive it, and build it, and, you know.
But there seemed to be some just characters then too that came along at the same time. You talk, TC and Tarzan and Swingle, and I mean, you think of the characters that were out there, Jim Nicole and the Greek.
All ended up by here.
Yeah, it's just.
Except one more story.
Okay.
We had the shop out in the front garage, and everybody that'd get a call to nature and go outside and just wee alongside the door, start smelling like a urinal out there. And I says, can't you guys go to the back of the property or somewhere? And they wouldn't do it, So I had a Model T coil, and that thing, it made a lot of voltage, no amperage, but it throw a spark about that big. So I told him, all right, now go to the back, and I'd mounted outside there some chicken wire on the ground, sitting on little wood stilts,
All right.
And if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, I turned on the Model T coil, and they did it the next time.
Is that right?
And grabbed them. And I used to take that, put it on my passenger car, and I'd put the hot wire down into the ground with a little chain that I'd let up and down.
Yeah.
And I'd go over behind my buddies' cars and I'd touch bumpers with them. And then I'd lay down so they couldn't see me in the seat, and they'd go to put their key into their car, and they were both electrified, but the tires kept them good, And everybody had leather soles before.
So you didn't kill anybody.
Wow, they'd stand there and they couldn't figure out what was going on.
Perfect.
Oh,
perfect.
That's a perfect ending for me.
Well, I don't know if it was, yeah.
But it went on and on and on.
Everyone's loving it. Everyone is absolutely loving it.
We could talk about those things all night. Bob Kreitz, I'm sure you guys
compared
pyrotechnics, bomber. But that's the kind of characters we had, and it just it put me in an awkward position because I was an official out there. I'm supposed to be maintaining order. Some of this stuff I'm right in the middle of it, because it was too much fun being had.
Yeah.
But those were good days. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Tommy.
We made it.
This is
so
happy. Great.
We'll
Thank you.
We're out of here.
Make sure to share this with your friends. We've got people who aren't drag racers that are watching that are saying hi. So you've got some new fans as of
okay, great.
TommyIvo.com. All right.
Drag racing's master showman, right over your shoulder.
Oh, we forgot to show them my book, but.
Well, I will take pictures of all that and post it.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
And then don't forget, TommyIvo.com.
TommyIvo.com.
It's worthwhile looking at. We don't sell anything on it. It's made up like a comic book. It's got pictures and captions, so it's easy reading. It isn't realms and realms of stuff to go through.
Love it. I'll post the link. I'll post the link on the group page.
Great.
Thanks, Tommy.